SUA, step away from the car. Officer Grant Whitmore said it as if the ownership question had already been settled. Marcus Hale stood beside the deep red Ferrari with both hands visible, watching the late afternoon sun slide across a body panel that had been flawless less than a minute earlier. Near the front wheel, a narrow piece of carbon fiber rested on the pavement. Whitmore looked at it, then back at Marcus. If this car is really yours, you can prove it downtown. Marcus did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He simply looked at his watch. 4:46 in the afternoon. Across the street, people moved between restaurants and office buildings, barely noticing the expensive car stopped near the curb. A delivery truck rolled through the intersection. A traffic light changed. Somewhere behind them, a horn sounded once and disappeared into the noise of the city. Everything around Marcus looked normal. Nothing about the moment felt normal. Whitmore had stopped him less than 10 minutes earlier, questioned the registration, examined the vehicle identification number, and dismissed every answer Marcus gave him. Now the Ferrari carried visible damage from an inspection Marcus had warned him not to perform without a specialist. Whitmore seemed more irritated by Marcus's calmness than by the possibility that he had made a mistake. "You do not seem very concerned about your car," he said. Marcus looked at the damaged panel. "I am concerned. Does not look like it. Being concerned and losing control are not the same thing." Whitmore gave a short laugh. "That is a pretty expensive attitude." Marcus said nothing. The Ferrari was worth close to $50 million, but the number was not what mattered to him at that moment. The car had been positioned there for a reason. A sealed envelope remained secured inside a compartment Whitmore had not discovered. A black sport utility vehicle sat half a block away with its engine running. Inside the lobby of a glass office building, a woman in a Navy business suit appeared to be reading something on her phone. None of them looked connected. They were. Whitmore did not know that. He looked at Marcus and saw a black man, standing beside a machine he believed did not belong to him. From that single assumption, everything else had followed. Marcus checked the time again. 4:46 and 12 seconds. His phone vibrated once inside his jacket. He did not reach for it. Whitmore noticed. "Do not touch that phone." Marcus kept his hands where they were. "I was not going to." "Good." Whitmore stepped closer. 20 minutes earlier, Marcus Hale had guided the deep red Ferrari into the downtown corridor with the patience of someone who understood that being noticed was part of the plan. The car was impossible to ignore. Its low profile caught the afternoon light. Its polished body reflected the glass towers around it. And every time traffic slowed, someone turned to look. Marcus expected that. What mattered was who looked too long. He stopped near the curb outside a modern office building and checked the time. 4:26 in the afternoon. Inside the car, nothing appeared unusual. A sealed envelope rested inside a secured compartment beneath a leather panel. His phone displayed no open messages, only a dark screen waiting for a coded signal. Half a block behind him, a black sport utility vehicle remained parked with 2 federal agents inside. Across the street, Special Agent Olivia Carter stood in the lobby of a financial services building, dressed like any other professional waiting for an appointment. Marcus stepped out of the Ferrari and closed the door carefully. To anyone passing by, he looked like a wealthy black man arriving downtown in an extraordinary car. That appearance was deliberate. The Ferrari had once belonged to a financier under federal investigation for moving illegal money through rare vehicles, private collections, and offshore companies. The car had since been secured through a federal asset process and temporarily assigned for an undercover meeting designed to draw out one of the financier's former associates. The price attached to the Ferrari mattered less than the history hidden behind it. Every ownership transfer had been documented. Every modification had been photographed. Every unusual compartment had been examined by specialists. One small area, near the passenger side frame, contained a forensic marker that investigators hoped would connect the vehicle to transactions already under review. Marcus was not there to show off the car. He was there because someone believed the Ferrari could reopen a trail that had gone quiet. He stood beside it and watched the reflection in a storefront window instead of looking directly at the building entrance. Olivia lifted her phone once, then lowered it. No contact yet. Marcus waited. A delivery van stopped near the corner. 2 office workers crossed the street carrying takeout containers. A man in a gray suit entered the financial services building without looking toward the Ferrari. Then Marcus's phone vibrated once. He checked the screen. 3 words appeared. Contact delayed. Hold. Marcus slipped the phone back into his jacket. The operation depended on patience. 5 minutes could mean nothing. 10 minutes could mean everything. He glanced toward the black sport utility vehicle, but gave no visible acknowledgement. The agents inside remained still. At the next intersection, a marked patrol car turned onto the street. Marcus noticed it only because noticing everything had become habit. The cruiser moved slowly through traffic, past the Ferrari, and continued another 100 feet. Marcus looked back toward the office building. Olivia had shifted closer to the lobby window. Then the patrol car's brake lights came on. Marcus watched its reflection in the Ferrari's side window. The cruiser stopped. After a moment, it pulled away from the curb, made a careful turn at the intersection, and headed back in his direction. Marcus remained where he was. He had done nothing wrong. The vehicle documents were legitimate. The federal operation was authorized. There was no reason for a routine patrol officer to become part of the afternoon. But as the cruiser approached a second time, Marcus saw the driver looking less at the Ferrari than at the man standing beside it. The patrol car slowed. This time, it did not pass. Officer Grant Whitmore stopped the patrol car beside the curb and remained behind the wheel for several seconds, watching Marcus through the windshield. Marcus kept his posture relaxed. He looked once toward the office building, then back toward the cruiser. Olivia Carter was still inside the lobby. The black sport utility vehicle remained half a block away. Nothing about the operation had changed, but the atmosphere around the Ferrari had. Whitmore finally stepped out and closed the patrol car door. His eyes moved across the car first, taking in the low body, the polished paint, the rare wheels, and the custom details that made the Ferrari look more like a museum piece than transportation. Then he looked at Marcus. "This your car?" Marcus answered evenly. "Yes." Whitmore glanced back at the Ferrari. "You sure about that?" Marcus held his gaze. "Yes." The question was simple, but the tone was not. Whitmore walked around the front of the car without touching it. "How long have you had it?" "Long enough to know the paperwork is current." Whitmore stopped near the passenger side. "That was not my question." Marcus kept his voice calm. "Then ask what you actually want to know." Whitmore's expression changed. "You always talk to police like that?" Marcus did not answer immediately. He could feel the operation pulling in two directions. Every extra second spent with Whitmore increased the chance that the intended contact would notice something unusual. At the same time, rushing the encounter would only make the officer more suspicious. "I am answering you," Marcus said. "I am just trying to understand why you stopped." Whitmore looked toward the intersection, then back at him. "We get stolen high-end vehicles moving through this area." "Was this vehicle reported stolen?" Marcus asked. "I am still checking." "Did you run the plate?" "I will." Marcus gave a small nod. "Then that should answer part of your concern." Whitmore frowned. "You seem pretty comfortable telling me what I should do." Marcus looked at the Ferrari, then at the patrol car. "I am comfortable with facts." Whitmore stepped closer to the driver's side and studied the temporary federal transfer document visible inside a clear folder on the seat. He did not yet know what it meant. License and registration. Marcus reached slowly toward his jacket. "My wallet is inside my coat." Whitmore washed his hand. Slow. Marcus removed the wallet, produced his driver's license, then opened the car and retrieved the registration without disturbing anything else inside. The documents matched his name. The address matched. The vehicle identification number listed on the registration matched the number visible through the windshield. Whitmore compared them twice. Marcus waited. Across the street, Olivia shifted slightly behind the lobby glass. The contact still had not appeared. Whitmore looked down at the registration again. "This does not make sense." Marcus kept his voice neutral. "What part?" Whitmore glanced at him, then at the Ferrari. "A car like this neighborhood. You standing here alone." Marcus understood exactly what the officer was saying without him saying it directly. None of those things make the registration false. Whitmore's jaw tightened. "Do not put words in my mouth." "I am not." Marcus paused. "I am asking what evidence you have that something is wrong." Whitmore folded the registration in his hand, not enough to damage it, but enough to show irritation. "The evidence is that things do not add up." Marcus looked at the matching documents between them. "They add up perfectly if you read them." For a moment, Whitmore said nothing. A cyclist passed behind the patrol car. A woman crossed the street carrying a grocery bag. The city kept moving around them. Whitmore looked again at Marcus, then at the Ferrari, and Marcus saw the shift in his expression. The officer was no longer investigating the car. He was trying to make the car fit the story he had already created about the man standing beside it. Whitmore kept the registration in his hand and looked through the windshield at the vehicle identification number again. Marcus waited beside the Ferrari, aware that every second mattered for reasons the officer still could not see. "Pop the hood," Whitmore said. Marcus looked at him. "For what purpose?" Whitmore gave him a tired expression. "To verify the vehicle. You already verified the plate, the registration, and the visible vehicle identification number." I said open the hood. Marcus stayed calm. "If you have a legal reason to inspect something specific, tell me what it is." Whitmore stepped closer to the front of the car. "You are making this complicated." "No," Marcus said. "I am asking you to explain what you are doing." Whitmore glanced toward the street, then back at the Ferrari. "High-end cars get cloned. Plates get switched. Documents get forged. That is possible. So open it." Marcus looked toward the office building without moving his head enough to draw attention. Olivia remained near the lobby window. The intended contact had still not arrived. The black sport utility vehicle was in the same position half a block away. Marcus had to keep Whitmore from turning a routine stop into something that could compromise the operation. "There are components on this vehicle that should not be handled without a specialist," Marcus said. Whitmore laughed once. "Now you are worried I might scratch it?" Marcus looked at him directly. "I am telling you there are areas of this car that require trained access." Whitmore's eyes narrowed. "That sounds like you are hiding something." Marcus felt the trap close exactly the way confirmation bias always did. Every answer became proof of the conclusion Whitmore had already chosen. "If I say nothing, you call that suspicious," Marcus said. "If I explain the car, you call that suspicious too." Whitmore handed the registration back. "Open the hood." Marcus accepted the document and placed it carefully on the roof. "I am not consenting to an unnecessary search." Whitmore's expression hardened. "You think saying it like that changes anything?" "It changes the record." For the first time, Whitmore looked toward his body camera. The glance lasted less than a second. Marcus noticed. "You know a lot about procedure," Whitmore said. "Yes." "Why?" Marcus paused. "Because procedure matters." Whitmore looked at the Ferrari again. Near the lower passenger side was a narrow access section built into the bodywork. It was not the hood. It was not an ordinary service panel. Marcus saw Whitmore notice it and immediately understood where the encounter was heading. "What is that?" Whitmore asked. Marcus answered carefully. "A factory access panel. Open it." "No." Whitmore turned toward him. "No. Not without the proper tool and not without a specialist." "Why?" Marcus kept his tone controlled. "Because removing it incorrectly can cause expensive damage." Whitmore looked at the panel, then at Marcus, and gave a faint smile. "Convenient." Marcus felt his phone vibrate once inside his jacket. He did not move. The signal meant the contact was close. He checked his watch. 4:35 in the afternoon. 11 minutes remained before the moment he would later remember at 4:46. Whitmore stepped toward the passenger side. Marcus spoke before he could touch anything. "Officer, I am asking you clearly not to remove that panel." Whitmore stopped and looked back at him. "And I am telling you I have a vehicle to verify." "Then call someone qualified to verify it." "I do not need your permission to do my job." Marcus held his gaze. "No, but you may need to explain why you ignored a warning before you did it." For a moment, the street seemed quieter. Whitmore looked at the access panel again. Marcus could see pride replacing caution. Across the street, Olivia lowered her phone. Inside the black sport utility vehicle, someone shifted behind the windshield. The operation was finally moving. So was Whitmore, but in the wrong direction. He reached toward the Ferrari, and Marcus knew the next decision would cost far more than the officer understood. Whitmore stood beside the passenger side of the Ferrari and studied the narrow access panel as if Marcus's warning had confirmed his suspicion instead of challenging it. Marcus remained several feet away with his hands visible. "Officer, do not force that panel," he said. Whitmore glanced back at him. "You already told me. Then you understand the risk." Whitmore looked down at the carbon fiber seam. "What I understand is that you do not want me looking behind it." Marcus checked the street without turning his head. Across from them, Olivia Carter had moved closer to the lobby doors. The black sport utility vehicle remained half a block away. A dark sedan had just entered the block and slowed near the far intersection. Marcus recognized the driver. The contact was finally arriving. He had waited for this moment for weeks. Now Whitmore was standing between him and the operation. "Call a qualified technician," Marcus said. "If you believe the vehicle needs further inspection, preserve it and verify the documentation first." Whitmore shook his head. "You really like giving instructions. I like preventing unnecessary mistakes." Whitmore reached toward the edge of the panel. Marcus spoke more firmly. "That piece is not designed to be removed by hand." Whitmore stopped for half a second. Pride made the decision for him. He pressed against the panel and attempted to release it from the wrong point. A dry mechanical click sounded beneath the bodywork. Whitmore paused. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. "Stop." It moved. "That does not mean it released correctly." Whitmore tried again. The panel shifted unevenly. A narrow carbon fiber mounting section separated from its proper position and dropped onto the pavement with a light clatter. The sound was small. The consequence was not. Whitmore stared down at it. Marcus did not move toward the car. His face remained controlled, but the silence between them changed. "How much is that piece?" Whitmore asked. Marcus looked at the exposed section. "That is not the question you should be asking." Whitmore's expression tightened. "It can be fixed." "Possibly. You have insurance." Marcus looked directly at him. "You were warned." Whitmore gave a dismissive shrug. "If the car is really yours, insurance will handle it." Marcus checked his watch. 4:41 in the afternoon. 5 minutes remained before the moment that would later define the stop. Across the street, the dark sedan pulled to the curb. A man in a gray suit stepped out, looked toward the office building, then toward the Ferrari. Olivia shifted position immediately. Marcus knew the operation had entered its most delicate stage. Whitmore did not notice. He was still looking at the damaged panel. "Open the rest of it," he said. Marcus's eyes hardened slightly. "No, you do not get to decide when I am finished. You have already damaged a rare vehicle after being specifically warned not to touch that section." Without a specialist, Whitmore looked at him. "Are you threatening me?" "No, I am making the record clear." Marcus's phone vibrated once. Then again. 2 short signals. The contact was in position. He kept his hand still. Whitmore heard the vibrations. "What is happening with that phone?" "Nothing you need to interfere with." Whitmore stepped closer. "That answer is not helping you." Marcus glanced toward the broken carbon fiber piece on the pavement, then back at Whitmore. "You keep assuming I am the one who needs help." The man in the gray suit entered the building. Olivia disappeared from the lobby window. The black sport utility vehicle's lights came on. Marcus understood the message immediately. The operation was moving without him now. He looked at Whitmore and realized the officer had made the worst kind of mistake, not because the Ferrari was worth millions, but because every warning, every document, and every chance to verify had been ignored. Whitmore thought he had damaged an expensive car. Marcus knew he had just touched something connected to a federal case. Marcus kept his eyes on Whitmore while the city moved around them as if nothing important had happened. The damaged carbon fiber piece remained on the pavement beside the Ferrari, small enough to overlook, expensive enough to matter, and connected to something far more serious than either money or appearance. Whitmore glanced at it, then at Marcus. "You said this was connected to something. What exactly does that mean?" Marcus did not answer immediately. Across the street, the man in the gray suit had disappeared into the financial services building. Olivia Carter was no longer visible through the lobby glass. The black sport utility vehicle had pulled away from the curb and was moving slowly toward the next intersection. The operation had shifted into its second phase. Marcus checked his watch. 4:42 in the afternoon. "It means you should stop touching the vehicle," he said. Whitmore frowned. "That is not an explanation. It is the most important instruction I can give you right now." Whitmore looked toward the exposed section where the access panel had been disturbed. "What is behind there?" "Evidence. Intersection." Someone stepped out of a restaurant carrying a paper bag. "Marcus," and the silence answered before he did. Marcus checked his watch. 4:45 and 12 seconds. Less than 1 minute remained before the moment he would remember most clearly, and Whitmore was finally facing the question he had avoided from the beginning. If every document had matched, what exactly had he been trying so hard to prove? Olivia Carter let the silence sit for several seconds before looking down at the damaged carbon fiber panel. "Do not touch anything else," she said. Whitmore shifted his weight. "I already told you. I was checking the vehicle." Olivia looked at him. "And now you are going to let someone qualified document what happened?" Marcus checked his watch. 4:45 and 23 seconds. The black sport utility vehicle returned to the block and stopped near the corner. A man wearing a dark jacket stepped out carrying a hard equipment case. Evan Pierce, the forensic vehicle specialist assigned to the operation, crossed the street and approached the Ferrari. Whitmore watched him kneel beside the damaged section without touching it. Evan examined the exposed mounting points, the carbon fiber piece on the pavement, and the surrounding bodywork. Was this panel removed manually? He asked. Marcus looked toward Whitmore. Whitmore answered, I was trying to verify the vehicle identification information. Evan looked up. This is not a vehicle identification access point. Whitmore said nothing. Evan continued. This area was documented before deployment. It contains a forensic marker tied to the asset history. Olivia's expression remained controlled. Is the marker compromised? Evan leaned closer, studying the exposed section. I cannot answer that here. The vehicle needs to be secured and examined under controlled conditions. Marcus looked at the Ferrari. The financial value was enormous, but the larger problem was what the car represented. If the marker had been disturbed, weeks of investigative work could become harder to explain, preserve, and defend. Whitmore finally asked, how much damage are we talking about? Evan stood. That depends on the mounting structure, replacement availability, and whether anything behind the panel was affected. Whitmore glanced at the small carbon fiber piece. It is one piece. Evan looked at him. On a vehicle like this, one piece can mean a custom fabrication, historical verification, and specialist labor. You do not estimate it from the size. Marcus checked his watch again. 4:45 and 41 seconds. A marked supervisor vehicle turned onto the street and pulled in behind Whitmore's cruiser. Sergeant Daniel Foster stepped out and approached with a calm, professional expression. Grant, he said, what happened? Whitmore began quickly. I stopped to investigate a potentially stolen exotic vehicle. The driver was uncooperative, then claimed he was federal. Marcus did not interrupt. Olivia did. The plate was valid. The registration matched. The visible vehicle identification number matched. Agent Hale warned him not to remove a specialized panel without a technician. Foster looked at Whitmore. Did you have a stolen vehicle return? No. Any altered plate? No. Any registration discrepancy? Whitmore hesitated. Not exactly. Foster looked toward Marcus. Marcus held out his federal credentials. Foster examined them, then returned them. Special Agent Hale? Yes. Foster turned back to Whitmore. Did you verify his identification? He only showed it a few minutes ago. Olivia answered, after Officer Whitmore had already damaged the vehicle. Foster looked at the carbon fiber on the pavement. Body camera on. Whitmore nodded. Yes. Foster keyed his radio and asked dispatch to preserve all footage, radio traffic, and vehicle checks associated with the stop. Marcus checked his watch. 4:45 and 57 seconds. The moment from earlier was nearly complete. Whitmore looked at Marcus and seemed to realize that the story he had been telling himself no longer had anywhere to go. The paperwork matched. The car was not stolen. The federal credentials were real. The specialist had confirmed the panel should never have been removed that way. At exactly 4:46 in the afternoon, Marcus looked down at the damaged Ferrari, then back at Whitmore. You should have verified who I was before you decided what I was. Whitmore said nothing. Foster took a slow breath and said, Grant, you are done with this. Stop. Step away from the vehicle. The authority in the street did not change because Marcus had become more powerful. It changed because the facts had finally been allowed to matter. 3 weeks later, Marcus Hale stood inside a secure federal vehicle facility and watched Evan Pierce finish inspecting the restored section of the Ferrari. Under the bright ceiling lights, the deep red paint looked untouched again. The carbon fiber panel had been replaced, the mounting structure had been repaired, and the forensic marker had been preserved well enough to remain useful to the investigation. The car looked almost exactly as it had before the stop, but Marcus' new appearances rarely told the whole story. Olivia Carter entered carrying a thin folder and stopped beside him. Final review came through, she said. Marcus looked at her, and the department confirmed that the registration, plate, and visible vehicle identification number were all valid before Whitmore continued the inspection. His body camera also captured your warning about the access panel. Marcus nodded slowly. What happens now? Olivia glanced at the Ferrari. Sergeant Foster removed him from field duty pending the department's full administrative process. The city is reviewing the property damage claim, and federal counsel has documented the interference with the investigation. Marcus did not smile. He had never wanted Whitmore humiliated. He had wanted the facts acknowledged. There was a difference. Evan closed his equipment case. For what it is worth, the forensic marker survived. We can still use it. Marcus looked at him. That is what matters. Evan smiled faintly. Most people would be more upset about a $50 million car. Marcus looked along the curve of the Ferrari's hood. Cars can be repaired. Olivia studied him. You have been saying that a lot. Marcus turned toward her. Because everyone keeps talking about the car. It is difficult not to. That is the problem. Olivia waited. Marcus continued. The car made the story dramatic. The badge made people pay attention. But neither one explains what went wrong. Evan remained quiet. Marcus looked through the open facility door toward the parking lot outside. Whitmore had the correct registration. He had the matching plate. He had the matching vehicle identification number. None of that changed his conclusion. Olivia nodded. Because the conclusion came first. Exactly. Marcus folded his arms. The mistake happened before he touched the panel. Before I showed him federal credentials. Before he knew anything about the investigation. Evan asked, You think he understands that now? Marcus considered the question. I hope so. And if he does not? Marcus looked back at the Ferrari. Then the repair bill will be the least expensive lesson he missed. A few days later, Marcus returned to the same downtown block in an ordinary government sedan. The restaurants were open. Office workers moved through the crosswalk. The glass building reflected the afternoon sun exactly as it had before. He parked near the curb and stepped out. No one stared. No one questioned why he was there. Olivia joined him a minute later with coffee in both hands. She gave him one cup. Different entrance today? She asked. Marcus smiled slightly. Different car. Olivia looked down the street. Maybe that makes life easier. Marcus took a sip. It should not make fairness easier. Olivia nodded. They stood there for a moment, watching the city move around them. Marcus thought about the Ferrari, the federal badge, the damaged panel, and the assumptions that had connected them all. The Ferrari had proved what he was driving. The credentials had proved where he worked. Neither should ever have been necessary to prove that he deserved to be treated with fairness. Whitmore had thought the most valuable thing on that street was a $50 million car. He had been wrong. The most valuable thing was the truth he refused to see until the cost of ignoring it became impossible to overlook.